building up process and breaking down process. So in the process of building up the cell or the organism or the organ or the tissue, many things take place. So all those things that take place in building up the organism are called anabolism. Everything that takes place in the breakdown of certain molecules or certain substances in the body of the organism are called catabolism. So the anabolism and the catabolism together make up what we refer to as metabolism. So now we are looking at microbial metabolism. So what do you mean by microbial metabolism? Microbial metabolism refers to the chemical processes by which microorganisms transform nutrients into energy and cellular materials required for growth. You can see that is what I just explained. So what about metabolism? It is a process by the chemical processes by which microorganisms transform nutrients. The nutrients that are needed, microorganisms transform the nutrients and they use it for their growth. Now, in the process of transforming nutrients into energy and cellular materials required for growth, also for reproduction and survival, when they are transforming it for growth, breaking down is also taking place. When they are transforming it for reproduction, breaking down process also go to take place. As they are trying to build up to reproduce, they will also break down something. As they are trying to build up to survive, they will also break down something in the process. Just like when you are constructing a house, you want to construct a house, but some blocks, some of the building blocks, you have to crack them. But you are using the block to build the house, to raise the house, but you're also going to break some blocks for some purpose in the process. But in essence, everything that is involved, the processing, when you are building a house, you have to get your sand, you have to get your cement, you have to get the land, you have to get the bricklayer, you have to get the laborers, you have to get the carpenter, you have to get the plumber, you have to get all of them. What do they want to do? They want to build a house. But remember, the sand they used in building your house was obtained from somewhere. They broke down some sandy places. They bring it, then they carried it in lorry or wherever, and they brought it to where you are. The same thing, the stone, the gravel, the granite that they brought to your site to build your house, to make your pillars, they were products of some block breakdown of some rocks somewhere far away. So they break down those rocks, they bring it to your site to build your house. So that is what I'm talking about. That in metabolism, a building up is involved and also a breaking down is involved. But eventually, your aim is to do a particular thing, which is growth, reproduction, and survival. So microorganisms carry out various metabolic pathways, and some of the pathways are aerobic respiration. Another of the pathway is anaerobic respiration. Another one is fermentation, and another one is photosynthesis. All these pathways depends on the environmental conditions and the available nutrients available for the microbes. These are the things that determine the kind of pathway that the organism is going to use. So let's take for instance that they want to bring sand to your site or they want to bring block to a building site. They are carrying the block, but the road they're supposed to take, that road, there is a kind of spoilage on the road. The road is bad. Are they going to go through the bad road? No, they will not go through the bad road. They will look for alternative road and go through the alternative road. So these are some of the things that we note here. So these are some of the things that we see. So they will go through alternative route. Why? Because the main road they ought to go through, that main road is bad. So they will look for alternative route by which they can go back. So the kind of pathway, whether aerobic, whether anaerobic, whether respiration, whether fermentation, whether photosynthesis, and there are many, many more ways that are in between all these. The kind of it will depend on the environmental conditions and available resources and other materials. Now, let's talk about aerobic respiration, which is one of the pathways for metabolism. In aerobic respiration, what do we have? The microbes use oxygen as the final electron acceptor. When we say they use oxygen, that means they carry out aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, that means they require oxygen, just like human being. They need oxygen to be able to grow. They, they take oxygen in to grow. That's how we said in aerobic respiration, microbes use oxygen as the final electron acceptor. in the electron transport chain to produce ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate, and this is rich sugar, rich source, energy source. After the breakdown of glucose, there's what is called glycolysis. When you have any kind of starchy food that you take, it will be broken down eventually to glucose. And then in the glucose chain, then we have what is called glycolysis. So the glycolysis is a process that takes place in which now you are going to have um, breakdown of that glucose. No matter the carbohydrate you eat, it will break down to glucose. Glucose is a simpler sugar. So no matter the kind of sugar you take, whether complex sugar, whether polysaccharide, whether whatever, it will break down to glucose. Now, this glucose is going to undergo what is called glycolysis. In the glycolysis, that is the breakdown of this glucose in the body. And then the end product of this glycolysis is pyruvic acid. The pyruvic acid now will now enter the Krebs cycle. We enter the energy chain. Then at the end of the day, it's going to produce ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. And this adenosine triphosphate is a primary energy currency of the cell, as I've said. During this process, organic compounds such as glucose and fatty acids are oxidized and broken down into carbon dioxide and water. So all this takes place during the process of glycolysis and ATP production. Now, let me ask this question to see if you still remember this issue about energy. In the cell of the microbe, or in the cell, we have different organelles in the cell. Which of the cell is involved with this ATP? Can you mention the cell? Or which organelle has ATP in the cell of bacteria or fungi, or in the animal cell or in the plant cell? Which of the cell is working along this line of ATP, that we can say that when you talk about energy, this is the cell you are talking about, this is the organelle you are talking about? Can anybody respond to that question, please? Anybody responding to that question? Okay, if there's no response, then the answer is simply mitochondria. Mitochondria, we call mitochondria the powerhouse of the cell. Why? Because in cells that do this kind of respiration, and these processes and they have mitochondria, all these things are going to take place in the mitochondrion. So that's why mitochondrion is called the powerhouse of the cell. That's where the energy breakdown takes place, and then the energy is given and is pushed out to the other parts of the body of the cell. Now, let me talk about anaerobic respiration. During anaerobic respiration, microbes use an inorganic molecule. They use inorganic molecule. They don't use organic molecule to, to get their oxygen. They use inorganic molecules such as nitrate or sulfate as the final electron acceptor. In the first one, they use oxygen as the final electron acceptor. But in this case of anaerobic, they use inorganic molecules such as nitrate or phosphate as the final electron acceptor in the electron transport chain, since oxygen is not available. So some of these organisms they are tactical, and they can adapt to different environments. Now, let's assume that normally students around take boat to school. Some students take boat to school before this time. But at this time now, because of the high hike in the cost of transportation due to the hike in the cost of fuel, most students that normally take boat before, they now do not take boat again. They take korope, or they take taxi, or they take other means of transport to school. You also see some lecturers that normally they bring their cars to school. Every lecturer bring their car. The car park in every department is filled up before. Now, lecturers pair themselves together in five. Four lecturers will pair with one person, and then they come to work together in one person's car instead of five of them coming with their car. Why? Because of the cost of fuel. Now, this anaerobic respiration, some of the organisms are not strict anaerobes. Strict anaerobes mean that they are obligatory anaerobes. I hope you are taking notes, please. Strict anaerobes mean they are obligatory. That means they must have absence of oxygen to survive. That is anaerobic. That means oxygen must be absent if they are going to survive. But in the case of some other organisms, they are not strict anaerobes. Whether if they have oxygen, they will use oxygen. But if oxygen is absent, they will go for lack of oxygen. So that is why we said these anaerobes can be divided into different forms, just like the aerobes too can be divided into different forms. You have the strict aerobes, and that is the obligatory aerobe that obligatorily they must use oxygen. We have the facultative aerobes. That means they are anaerobic, but they can use oxygen. We also have, in the case of anaerobic, we also have strict anaerobes. Then we have facultative anaerobes. In these facultative anaerobes, normally they will use oxygen for their growth. But when they find themselves in an environment where there's no oxygen, then they will survive without oxygen. So normally they will use oxygen as a final electron acceptor. But when there is no oxygen, these facultative anaerobes, they will now use nitrate or sulfate as the final electron acceptor. So this is their own mechanism. Normally, this is what they will eat. Normally, you will take rice, but because there's no rice at the restaurant, you say, okay, give us spaghetti. Normally, you will take pounded yam, but because there's no pounded yam, you say, okay, give me eba or give me fufu. So you can see, but there are some people that they are strict pounded yam people. If there's no pounded yam, they will not eat. They will go and be hungry until they find pounded yam before they before they eat. So this also happens among microorganisms, among bacteria. So anaerobic respiration, the microbes use inorganic molecules such as nitrate and sulfate. So they can use other inorganic molecules. That's why I say inorganic molecules such as, there may be others. So this will be your first assignment on this lecture. What are the other inorganic molecule? Just list 4 other inorganic molecules that can be used for anaerobic respiration in the that are similar to nitrate or sulfate. So if they don't use nitrate, they don't use sulfate, which other inorganic molecule are they going to use as the final electron acceptor? You write it and you write it down. I will collect it from you later. So in the electron transport chain, why is this so? Because oxygen is not available. You can see this material says it's because oxygen is not available. That is for the facultative anaerobes. For the what?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Please, can you say the question again, sir?
All right, I'll state it again later. You can get it from your colleagues, please. So this process generates less ATP than aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, more ATP is generated. In anaerobic respiration, less ATP is generated. Because it's like nature made it that majority should be able to respire or carry out aerobic respiration, but because of certain factors modification, some are doing anaerobic respiration. So in the nature design is that those who do aerobic respiration, they get more energy than those who do anaerobic respiration. So let's now move on to fermentation. What happens during fermentation? In fermentation, microorganisms convert organic compounds such as glucose or lactose into simpler compounds like alcohol. This was exactly what we did in the practical on sugar fermentation. This was exactly what you did in that practical you did the other day. What you did was a fermentation process. That was a fermentation process. That is the production of alcohol. It's a fermentation process and it's widely used in the food industry and in many other industrial processes whereby they allow the fermentation to take place due to the action of microorganisms. In the fermentation that you did that converts your sugar into alcohol, the organism involved was Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is also commonly called yeast. So scientifically, the name is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So I take that again and said in fermentation, microorganisms convert organic compounds such as glucose or lactose into simpler compounds like alcohol, organic acids or gases. The process does not require oxygen and it generates less ATP than respiration. So you can see the range, the levels. Aerobic respiration generates more ATP. Anaerobic respiration follow it in ATP generation. ATP means energy. Then fermentation follows it with less energy generation. So the first one is aerobic respiration, followed by anaerobic respiration, followed by fermentation. So now let's talk about photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is another process that is involved, is another metabolic pathway because I'm looking here at microbial metabolism. So another one is photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, what happens is that microbes use sunlight as energy source to produce organic compounds like glucose. So the microorganisms make use of the energy of the sunlight, and that is why the sunlight is referred to as the ultimate source of energy on earth. Sunlight is referred to as the ultimate source of energy on earth. Why? Because plants, green plants, are the major sources of energy. So any other forms of energy are derived from the energy of the green plants. So green plants get their energy from sunlight. Plants and animals, green plants get their energy. Animals now go and feed on those green plants. Other animals now feed on the green plants or on the other animals. Microorganisms can live on the green plants or on the animals or on both or on the product or the act on decomposing them. So you can see that the energy actually comes from the sunlight and they are drawn by the green plants, then it now flow to other places. So photosynthesis is another metabolic pathway in which microbes use sunlight as an energy source to produce organic compounds like glucose. This process is used by phototrophic bacteria and algae. You know, now we are not talking about plants here, we are talking about microorganisms. So I want you to be putting your mind to it. As I'm using plants, using other things as example, what we're talking about is microorganisms, not the plant particularly. So in this case, this photosynthesis is carried out by phototrophic bacteria and algae. So phototrophic bacteria and algae are the bacteria and algae that are green, that have green color, that have green pigment. So with this green pigment, they can draw and make use of the energy of the sunlight using their chloroplast to make their food. Now, let me summarize what I've said so far. Microbial metabolism is a complex process. It's more complex than the way I've explained it. The way I've explained it is quite simple, but it is more complex than this. And it enables microorganisms to survive and thrive in diverse environments. So this microbial metabolism enables microorganisms to adapt and to survive in different environments. So if the organism is going in one direction, it sees that what it needs is not available. The organism will adapt and use another mechanism to be able to survive. So that is the microbial metabolism. I was talking to you in the class the other day, talking about that boiling water will kill majority of microorganisms. But this boiling will kill microorganisms at which temperature? And 100 degrees C. But it will kill all vegetative cells. What about the ones that are spore formers? The boiling will not affect the spores. So if you finish boiling and the water cool down, or the what you boiled cool down, and the spores are high, the organism and the spores are there, the spores will not be affected by the boiling. You can see that boiling, that spore formation is an adaptive feature, is a kind of metabolism to escape the boiling. So they form spores and then they escape the boiling. After you have finished boiling, it has cooled down. When the condition becomes very favorable, the spores will break and then it will release the vegetative cells, which will then continue to grow again. So that is what I explained to you the other day. So this study of microbial metabolism is important in understanding how microbes contribute to global nutrient cycling, biotechnology, and also in disease processes. I just said that this study of microbial metabolism is important in understanding how microbes contribute to global nutrient cycling. You can see we have different cycle, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, potassium cycle, different cycle of nutrients. The plants die. When the plants take up sunlight energy, they have food in their body. They have nitrogen, they have carbon, they have phosphorus. When the plants die, what happens? Microorganisms act on them and break them down, and in the process, microorganisms take up part of the phosphorus. In the process of decomposition, microorganisms take part of the carbon. In the process of decomposition, microorganisms take part of the nitrogen from the plant. So now the microorganisms themselves have nitrogen in their body and on and on. So this the nutrient cycling continues. And all this also helps us in biotechnology, and it also helps us understand disease processes. So this is where I'm going to stop for now. And if you have any question, you can ask your question now, please. Somebody asked the question initially that I should mention again the assignment I gave you. I do not want to say it again because it shows me that you are not following what I said. If you are following, you will get it. That means you just put on the Zoom and then you left. Then when you hear assignment, then you came back. If I said it and I repeated it over and over again, I said in anaerobic respiration, microbes use an inorganic molecule such as nitrate or sulfate. So if they don't use nitrate or sulfate, what other inorganic molecule can they use? Name four other inorganic molecules that microbes can use for anaerobic respiration apart from nitrate and sulfate. So write it down in your sheet of paper. When it is time, you keep it. When it is time, I will ask for it and then you submit it. So if you don't have any question, let me wait for 1 minute to see if you have any question. In the absence of any question, then we'll call it a day after the 1 minute. Do you have any question, please? Any other question on microbial metabolism or any other aspect of these topics you have looked at?
Good morning, sir.
All right, morning. Go on.
Okay. So you mentioned that the microbial pathways that there's respiration part of it.
Respiration.
So like can yes.
Can I do
So
what?
you said aerobic, anaerobic, respiration, fermentation, and
Yeah.
you said aerobic, anaerobic, respiration, fermentation, and like can you explain briefly that respiration? Like how does it work?
I've explained already, but I'll take it again. I mentioned aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. These are part of metabolic pathways. So in aerobic respiration, just as the name implies, aerobic, that means oxygen is used as the final electron acceptor. Or in layman language, we can say that aerobic respiration is respiration in the presence of oxygen, which are carried out, and this is carried out by the microorganisms. So in presence of oxygen, aerobic respiration will take place. Then in the absence of oxygen, anaerobic respiration is what will take place. So in that anaerobic respiration, instead of using oxygen as the final electron acceptor, oxygen is not used. Instead of using oxygen, inorganic molecule like sulfate or nitrate are used as the final electron acceptor. So in that case, oxygen is not involved. Then I mentioned that in aerobic respiration, more energy is produced compared with anaerobic respiration. And then anaerobic respiration produces more energy than fermentation. So that is some of the things I mentioned already. Any other question, please? Any other question, please? So in the answer to the question, we are going to call it a day. Next week, we are not going to meet because it's Christmas period. I will look at the scheme of work and see how we have gone, and I'll look at the new year so that we'll look at how many weeks we can use in the new year before we call it a day, in the new year before the exam, because I understand that exam is coming up 3rd of February. So that means you have 4 weeks or less in January before the exam. So have a good day and Merry Christmas to those who are doing the Christmas. I'll talk to you in the next time. I think that will be in January. Until then, keep yourself safe, and make sure you also study, because the festive season we will still have many Christmases, but we will not have many opportunities to write this to do this course or to write this course. So, and also to do the exam or the test you're going to do in January. So you should celebrate wisely. Have a good day. Morning.
Sir, don't ask chickens. Sir.
What? What?
Don't forget our Christmas chicken, sir.
Your what?
Christmas chicken, sir.
Is it lecturer that will give student chicken or the student will give lecturer chicken?
It is the lecturer that will give us the chicken, sir.
All right, no problem, no problem. The chicken and left. Don't worry. Anywhere you go in your street, just be looking right and left. You'll see chicken there. Anyone you see, just take it. If they ask you, say it's your lecturer that says you take it. But don't mention my name. Just say it's your lecturer, but not me.